Get the red button, son. As I said, today we're going to have a little bit different ceremony today than what we normally do in our conversation. Today, the title of today's service is going to be The Finest Thing This Side of Heaven. You know, I looked on the internet, I looked on YouTube, and I looked on all the places. And of all of them here, this is the best version I've come up with. It's not the longest version, but it's the best version. It comes from a sermon by Chaplain Bob Leroy from Massachusetts. He's the first one. So I borrowed some of this from his. The year was 1943. The USS Dorchester, a ship that was once a luxury liner. It had been pressed into service and refitted on January the 22nd, the second winter of the war. It was ready to serve as a troop transport and a cargo ship. It was staffed by merchant marines and a crew of 130. 751 soldiers came aboard and settled in the berths below, stacked 4 high, heading out into the cold North Atlantic as part of a convoy of freighters, tankers, and Coast Guard cutters. 4 chaplains came aboard. All of them were first lieutenants. There was George Fox. He was a Methodist. Alexander Good. He was a Jewish rabbi. John Washington was a Catholic priest. And Clark Poling was of the Reformed Church. Washington was an Irish Catholic family, come from New York, New Jersey. At age 12, he got a disease. It was a fatal throat disease. And he miraculously recovered. And he told his sister, God must have something. God must have something special for me. Rabbi Good was a third-generation rabbi. At age 10, he was at Arlington Cemetery and saw a World War I soldier, the unknown soldier, laid to rest. When the U.S. entered the war, Good left his synagogue and reported to York, Pennsylvania, and reported for duty. Clark Poling gave up a law career in Michigan to enter the seminary. When he completed his training and was ordained, he served for a while at the First Reformed Church in New York. Then when the war came, he was married with a 2-year-old son, and his wife was expecting another child. Poland wrote to his father, "Don't pray for my safe return. Don't do that. Instead, pray that I do my duty." George Fox was a World War I veteran. After the war, he served several Methodist churches in Vermont as a circuit rider or a circuit preacher. When the Japanese attacked, he told his wife, "I must go. I know what these boys are going to be facing." The moment the four met on board, they became instant friends. And from that time forward, they were always seen together. These military clergy were inseparable, bound by a mission to serve God and country, with the understanding, the concept that one's congregation goes beyond church lines. Aboard the Dorchester, Captain Danielson cautiously ordered the men to sleep in their clothing, with the life jackets close at hand, because Nazi submarines and U-boats were on the prowl. During the day, they were under cover of a U.S. Air Force base in Greenland. During the passage, daily alerts and drills were conducted on board. And as in the case of war, the attendance and worship services continued to grow steadily. Everybody came to church, or chapel, or whatever. In addition to services, to boost morale and to start off boarding, the chaplains organized a talent show. And it turned out that they were part of that show. Soldiers played guitars and bagpipes and pianos, and they were sing-alongs and solos. Chaplains spent much of their time doing ministry of presence. Otherwise, they were doing a Foot Locker counseling. And they visited the troops and visited the sick. They tried to break the tension of the boys. Chaplain Washington came up on a poker game, and one of the soldiers at the table asked him, said, "Father, would you please bless my hand?" He looked at him and said, "Why would I want to waste a blessing on a measly pair of deuces?" You know, I imagine that made him feel good. A few days later, a seasick soldier said to him, "Father, if you really want to do some good, would you please get me out on deck where I can jump overboard?" The priest gave him some soda crackers for his seasickness, then convinced him to join him in a game of cards. As officers, the chaplains knew their destination, but this classified information had been withheld from the troops. Although rumors were abounding, one soldier tried to get Rabbi to reveal where they were going, and he was pledged to operational security because he couldn't tell him. So Chaplain Good replied, "Why spoil the surprise? We're going to surprise you where we're going." However, the Dorchester docked at St. John's, Newfoundland. Everyone correctly guessed that the convoy was headed to Greenland and pressing through what is called Torpedo Junction. As ships journeyed north through gale force winds, the sonar picked up the presence of a submarine. It was February the 3rd. And the soldiers were in their bunks, but few could sleep. You know, the heat, if you've ever been in one of those steamers, the heat comes up from the bottom. And the fear that kept them awake. Then at 3:58 a.m., they were 15 miles from their destination, and a periscope of the German U-boat 456 caught the Dorchester in its crosshairs. Fired, hitting the lower midsection of the ship on the starboard side. The hit was deadly and decisive. PFC John Grayley had just come off of guard duty and was on his way to the galley for some coffee. And he heard the thud, and he felt the deck rumble under his feet. And he said, "What the heck was that? What's going on?" And he yelled to the mess sergeant and the cook after, "We've been hit." Panicked men started pouring up from the bows of the ship. They were stunned and they were disoriented. And the smell of ammonia filled the air from the refrigerated pipes being broken. The Dorchester began listing starboard. No one set up a distress flare. So most of the vessels in the convoy were unaware that the Dorchester had been hit. The power was knocked out, and the ship was unable to make radio contact with escort ships. Two of them, the Comanche and the Escanaba, saw the flash from the explosion and were able to rescue 230 troops. The testimony of the survivors reveals that the only order in the chaos came from the 4 chaplains. They immediately appeared on the sloping starboard side. Through it all, they calmly quieted the men and guided them toward their boat stations. They opened up a storage locker and distributed life jackets. Private William Bernard was floating in oil-polluted water surrounded by debris and dead bodies. He was close enough to the ship to hear his fellow soldiers crying. Some of them were praying and swearing. But he said, "I could also hear the chaplains preaching courage." Bernard managed to get into a life raft, and he said, "The voices of the chaplains were the only thing that kept me going." The four chaplains offered prayers for the dying and encouragement for those who would live. Coast Guardsman John Mahoney realized he had forgotten his gloves and started back to his bunk. Chaplain Good stopped him and said, "Never mind, I have 2 pairs." And Rabbi Good had already decided that he wasn't leaving the Dorchester. Mahoney really realized that he wasn't going to abandon the ship. Without the chaplain's gloves, my fingers would have frozen stiff. I would have never made it on my own. I owe my life to Chaplain Good. The 4 chaplains handed out life vests until there were no more left. Then they gave away their own. They didn't call out for soldiers of their own faith groups. They just handed out the next soldier in line. Engineer Grady Clark slipped into the water and swam for a lifeboat. He looked back at the ship and he could see the chaplains standing with their arms linked, braced against the slanting deck and praying. There were no sense of panic, just words of prayer. There were prayers in Latin and in Hebrew and in English. Finally, a half hour after being hit, the stern came high out of the water and the Dorchesters sank into the sea. Of the 904 men on board, 605 lost their lives. 605, that's a lot. It was the finest thing I had ever seen or hoped to see this side of heaven. Carl Sandburg once said, "Valor is a gift. Those having it never know for sure whether they have it until the test comes." For their sacrificial bravery, the 4 chaplains were posthumously awarded the Distinguished Service Cross, the Purple Heart, along with a special Congressional Medal for Heroism, meant exclusively for these 4 men. And in 1951, at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, President Truman dedicated the Chapel of the 4 Chaplains, a non-denominational sanctuary dedicated to both interfaith cooperation and respect. Inside are 3 altars, 1 Catholic altar, 1 Protestant altar, and 1 Jewish altar. In honor of our nation's respect for religious diversity and our privilege to exercise it freely, the 4 chaplains were also on the 1948 postage stamp. As we celebrate the birth of our country, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, one founded on the principles of liberty, we are reminded that freedom isn't free. We enjoy the blessings and liberty because of the sacrifices of those who are willing to take a stand for this country. As Christians, we know we are set free from the penalty of sin by the sacrifice of Jesus Christ. He represented us on the cross and died in our behalf. Jesus said in John 8:36, "Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed." Again in John 15:13, it says, "No greater love has one than this, than to lay down one's life for his friends." The Apostle Paul, he calls for a total commitment. In Romans 12:2, "Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove that what is good and acceptable and the perfect will of God." Amen. Now I'm going to light the candles and call their names. I like this candle. They're all first lieutenants for Chaplain George Fox. I like this candle for Alexander Good. I like this candle for John Washington. And I like this candle for Clark Poling. Oh, true heroes. They set an example for us to follow. Mo, would you be kind enough to lead us in a dismissal prayer, please?
Our dear Heavenly Father, we ask that you guide us throughout our day. Let us remember the sacrifices that were made by these poor chaplains as we go through our day. We ask that you watch over all our troops at home and abroad, bring them all home safely. We ask this in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank y'all everybody for showing up today. It's really been a
When I get a copy of yours, I ran out of data.
better cut it off. Matter of fact,
So whenever